Okay, paper callers, let's talk about working with affiliates. Now, working with affiliates can be an extremely challenging process, but they are some of the smartest, most creative people on earth, and they can really help take your business to the next level once you're ready to expand. I think the most important part about working with affiliates, though, is making sure that you have a process in place, because you need to assume that you're going to be defrauded at some point, or that an affiliate is going to attempt to defraud you. If you don't have that train of thought and you're not looking through that lens, you'll end up getting caught with your pants down, and it can be a very expensive process. And so I'm not saying here that all affiliates are fraudulent. I'm not even saying that a large percentage of affiliates are fraudulent. I'm just saying that whenever you put out a program that's in some sort of CPA fashion so that people are compensated for getting consumers to complete an action, it has a high propensity of fraud in general, because it can be easy money if companies are not paying attention for fraudsters. So it's important that you understand this and understand how to mitigate it from day one, or at least try to mitigate it with processes and procedures from day one, or you might run into a few different issues. Now, also you have to be careful when working with affiliates that you diversify campaigns and diversify capacity across multiple affiliates. Otherwise, if you have a campaign that's critical to your business and one large affiliate driving traffic to it, and they decide that they want to send their traffic somewhere else, your entire business can collapse literally in seconds. So just like anything, you need to diversify your risk, especially when it comes to affiliates. So one of the ways that you can protect yourself is offering payment terms that are in line with the quality assurance process and in line with how you get paid. And so we've seen it before. Affiliate networks and pay-per-call networks fail. They go out of business. And one of the number one reasons, or the number one reason that affiliate networks go out of business, is the fact that they have mismanagement of their accounts receivables. And so what I mean by that is they pay their affiliates really, really quickly, and then their advertisers pay them later. And what happens with that is affiliates get their money right away, sometimes before you can even catch fraudulent activities, and then the advertiser refuses to pay, so the network or the broker, intermediary, whatever you want to call it, is left holding the bag. And that is what you want to avoid when working with affiliates. So you want to be careful when you offer accelerated payment terms to affiliates, and by accelerated, I mean you're paying them before you get paid for that traffic, because then you become a bank, and that's an entirely different business model. Okay, so you need to understand your payment risk when working with affiliates. Now, you want to think about that and pay them appropriately. So if you have a new affiliate that comes on board, maybe over time you can offer them accelerated payments once you've proven their traffic, but you should never offer brand new affiliates weekly payments when they're like weekly net 1 or weekly net 2. It's just not feasible to do that. It's way too much risk on you. And if you don't have a quality assurance process and team that's in place and jamming, you're going to run into issues, and then you're going to be left picking up the tab for affiliates fraud at some point. Maybe you get lucky. If you want to play that game, you can. But I think it's better off that you don't consider yourself lucky and you just put a structure in place so it's good. Now, on the other side of that, you also want to have minimum payment thresholds for affiliates. You don't want to be paying affiliates $25 checks or $25 payments. It's too expensive to process the payments. There's too much work that goes into actually issuing payments. So you want to decide what your minimum payment threshold is going to be. And so a lot of networks have a $100 threshold. Some of them have a $500 threshold or $250. You have to figure out what's best for you and where most of your affiliates are based. If they're in the United States, you can do automated ACH payments really cheaply, and so it's not a big deal. If you're operating in the Eurozone, you have SEPA payments, which are super cheap and not a big deal. But if most of your affiliates are located around the world and you have to send wire transfers, there's going to be fees associated with that. And there's a lot of work to structure a wire transfer. If you're only paying out $250, the time associated with that just eats into your margin. So you want to figure out what your minimum payment thresholds are. Now, I suggest that if you have a new affiliate come on board, that you pay them slower, and then you make them aware of this. Like, you'll work up to weekly payments with your top affiliates, but you start them out with monthly payments. Or they can't get a payment faster than that until they meet a specific threshold. And that way it reduces your risk, and it also reduces your time when processing those payments. You also want to have clear and repeated disclosure about when your affiliates are going to get paid. They need to know what the schedules are, when it changes, what that schedule is. And I can tell you right now, if you're ever going to pay an affiliate late, you better be the first person to notify them before they figure it out on their own, or they're going to run around and trash your reputation everywhere they possibly can. And frankly, they should, because if you aren't going to pay someone on time, you should notify them in advance. That's the correct way to handle that situation. It's not to pay late and hope no one notices, okay? And the last thing you ever want to do is lie to someone about when your payment is going out. If it went out late, be honest with them. If you tell them that it didn't go out late and then they receive it late, they're gonna know and they're not gonna trust you anymore. So do not play games with people's money. They get very upset when you do. A lot of people take it personally, and you need to treat it with care. And so the best way to do that is, again, clear and repeated disclosure. Email people when their payments are going out. Email people before their payments go out. Email people if there's any change to their payments. And I say email because then you have it in writing and you can reference it should there be an issue. Hey, we're really sorry that your payment went out a little late. There was a holiday. We notified you in advance through email. In the future, watch for those emails, and if there's an issue, ping us. We'll try and do our best to accommodate whatever you need, right? And so I think that the root of any successful business when you're working with a lot of partners is good communication. And if you're willing to communicate and stay on top of that communication, you're going to be much better off, especially when you're working with affiliates, because these guys can be a fickle group, and if they're smart and they're the big affiliates you want to work with, they're going to have their own call tracking. And so if you don't pay them on time or you don't communicate, you're going to show up and then your traffic's going to be gone, and then you're going to be begging them for it back. And then maybe they use that leverage to try and get more payments out of you or whatever the case is, okay? So you really want to be on top of your communication. You also really need a way to keep track of commissions. So if you're going to work with affiliates, you need a platform like Ringba, okay? And you want an independent platform like ours so that people trust it. They know that there's no funny business going on with their statistics. So we certify all the statistics, we make sure everything's accurate, and then we take care of all the billing, commissions, revenue, payouts, everything inside of our system so that you don't have to really worry about it. You just have to worry about paying your affiliates. Now, you also, if you're going to have a large volume of affiliates, like 1 or 2 is not a big deal. You can do that manually. But if you're going to have 50 or 100 affiliates that are getting payments on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, that's a lot of payments to keep track of. And so you're going to have to use some type of automated payment system. There's a few different types of automated payment systems that are widely used. In performance marketing, Tipalti is used by a lot of affiliate networks and pay-per-call networks. And they have a really nice platform. You can very easily send payments to large numbers of affiliates all around the world with that. If you have a lot of people in Europe, Payoneer is a great option. They have a really nice system for distributing payments to wallets all around Europe and all around the world, frankly. And if you want, you can even use PayPal. Their mass payment system allows you to upload a text file or CSV of payees. They charge you a flat rate of $1 per transaction and then handle all the bulk payouts for you. So you really need to look into automated payment systems if you're going to have more than a handful of affiliates. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a lot of your time doing payouts and accounting And that adds up because it prevents you from doing business development. So the cost of an automated payment system is actually a profit center if you think about opportunity cost. Also, you are going to want to charge your affiliates to send them payments. If they're getting a wire transfer, you should bill them and deduct the fee for that wire transfer on their payment. Almost all affiliate networks and pay-per-call networks do this, and so you really should charge if they prefer a wire transfer. Now, if they want an ACH or a SEPA payment, or they'll take a PayPal Mass payment, you don't need to charge them because it doesn't really cost you anything. But if they want the wire, you should absolutely bill them. And overseas payments are going to be a little bit trickier too, and that's why I highly recommend using one of these payment service providers, because if you're dealing with overseas banks all around the world, you really never know where your affiliates are going to be located, and there are all sorts of banking rules and regulations and anti-money laundering compliance and all this stuff. And so if you start sending a large volume of overseas payments to random countries, your bank's going to ask for more information. You're going to have to configure all these wire templates. It ends up taking a lot of time, and that's what you want to avoid. And so that's why I am very pro automated payment systems whenever you get beyond just a couple affiliates. And if I were going to open a pay-per-call network, one of the first things I would do is open an account with an automated payment system, because the last thing I want to do is manually process payments or pay someone to sit there and manually process payments when there's automated systems that can take care of all that for me. Because at the end of the day, the cost is essentially irrelevant when you compare it to the opportunity cost of being out there trying to land more clients or whatever you can do to grow your business. Now, whenever you're working with a new affiliate, you want to implement some type of screening process to weed out the problems. So if your brand becomes recognizable in the space, there's actually some affiliate fraud groups for pay-per-call, and some networks actually maintain a shared spreadsheet of fraudsters and problematic partners with complete records of what happened, who they are, and all that information in it. So once you get to a point where the industry recognizes you as a legitimate player, all you have to do is ask a few people or ask someone on the Ringba team, and if we feel it's appropriate, we can grant you access to some of those things that can help you prevent affiliate fraud. And they're very, very helpful. The community comes together and they like to prevent this type of thing. It's really a cool function of the community. And so when you have, let's get back to the questions. When you have a new affiliate come on board, you want to ask them a lot of questions. If you have a form on your website and it has a lot of fields on it, it's going to reduce the amount of people who are actually willing to take the time to fill that out. And in the case of affiliates, that may not necessarily be a bad thing, because the lazier they are, the more likely they are to commit fraud, and they don't want to fill these forms out. Now, some great affiliates, even myself in the past, would hate filling these forms out because, you know, affiliates generally have an ego and they don't want to waste their time doing something so trivial as filling out a form. But if they weren't a referral, this is a good way to screen them, because you're going to see how they communicate. You're going to see if they're willing to invest the time into filling out your form, and you're going to get a bunch of information about them and what is important to their business, and then you can decide. So all giant super affiliates were affiliates that had never run a campaign before at some point, and I think that's important to realize. Maybe only 1 or 2 or 3% of affiliates become 6-figure or 7-figure annual affiliates, but at some point they had to start somewhere. And so I'm a really big advocate of giving people a chance, even if they're new, as long as they take the time to communicate well and put the effort in. If I can see that someone's putting the effort in, even if they're brand new to pay-per-call, I'll personally help them set up their campaign in Ringba. I don't care. It's not necessarily about the time. It's about giving back sometimes to the people who are willing to work hard, because you never know who's going to be the next gigantic affiliate. And so I think when people put in a lot of effort, they fill out your forms, they try to communicate with you, it's worth taking the risk of giving people a shot. And a lot of pay-per-call networks in the space will not do that. And so that's why if you're an affiliate, you really need to take the time to fill this out. And if you're going to work with affiliates in the space, it's important to have this process in place so that you can judge people by how they communicate and what they say to you. So I think an important question is, how long have you been in the industry? And what I mean by that is performance marketing. Just because someone's never run a pay-per-call campaign does not mean that they're not a great affiliate. We have a new client on our platform that I met at a trade show, and they showed me their stats. They were doing $400,000 a month in affiliate commissions, had never run a single phone call. They didn't know how to do it. And so I said, hey, I'll teach you. And they'll be our customer. We'll make some introductions for them, and they'll move along their way and be very successful at it. So just because someone has never run a call campaign before doesn't mean they're not a great affiliate. So you want to ask, how long have you been in the performance marketing industry? Next question, do you work with any other networks? I think this is a very simple question, because if they say yes and they name them, then you can ask that network about the affiliate and if their traffic's legitimate. And this is why you want to have great relationships with as many people in the industry as possible. You can ask them for references. Not a lot of people do this, but I like to ask for references, because if people have references, I'll contact them. And that is important. If someone gives you references and you're considering working with them, contact the references. Ask them what campaigns they're currently running, how they generate their calls, the types of traffic they're working with. And if you get an application and they say a few different traffic sources or how they generate their calls, and you're unsure or their answers don't really paint a perfect picture for you, you should follow up with them and ask them for links to their landing pages. And if they're willing to show you their landing pages and be transparent about how they're generating their calls, it's probably a good sign that they're going to be an okay affiliate. I also like to ask people what their goals are, regardless of whether they're going to be a Ringba customer, if I were running a network, or whatever the case is. Tells you a lot about the person if they tell you what their goals are. And so ask them what their goals are. If they say they want to learn about pay-per-call, or they want to build a business, or whatever their answer is, it's going to give you some insights into who they are. Because realistically, we're also judging the person if we're going to work with affiliates, because we're not going to get to meet them in person if they're applying online. We may not even talk to them over the phone first. We just kind of create these relationships on the internet out of thin air. And so it's important to get to know who these people are so that you can better judge whether they're going to be a legitimate player or not. Then you should ask them, how do you make sure that your calls are quality? It's going to tell you whether they even know that their calls are quality or not. And then you can ask them if they've ever been terminated from a network. I don't think most affiliates, even if they have, are going to answer yes. But if someone's been terminated from a network before and they do answer yes to this question, and then tell you why, I think that shows a commitment to honesty. And so it doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily work with that person. Maybe you just pay a little bit closer attention. But if they tell you the truth to something bad, to me, that's a good sign, because people make mistakes. We all do. I have, you have. And so if they're being honest, maybe they're worth a shot. And then how much concurrency can you generate? I think this is an important question, because if they don't understand what concurrency is, maybe not a great partner, or they're very new. And then how many calls per day, right? You want to understand how many calls per day they're running so that you can get the size and scope of the opportunity. Now, you can ask them a whole slew of other questions, okay? You can ask them, how many different campaigns are they running, and what verticals are they in, and what campaigns have they run in the past, and what are the greatest challenges that they're facing, and a bunch of other stuff, right? You can ask them an endless list of questions. But my point here is that you should ask a lot of questions of affiliates when they get started, because you want to weed out the fraud and you want to know who you're dealing with, essentially. Because if you don't know who you're dealing with and you let anyone run any of your campaigns, you're going to get fraud, you're not going to know why, and it's going to get messy. You can lose buyers, and it's a bad thing. So you want to stay on top of it. You want to see that the affiliates are going to put in the time to communicate with you, that they communicate clearly and promptly and answer lots of your questions with thorough, well-thought-out requests. If someone answers just yes, 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 yes to all the questions, well, you know, that's a waste of time. It's like our Facebook groups. We ask 3 simple questions, and some people answer yes, yes, yes. And you know what we say? Decline. And so that filter gets rid of a lot of the problems before they ever start, even though it's a very simple filter. So the more complex your questionnaire is, the more filtering and better off you may be. So once you have a bunch of affiliates that are applying to your platform, you need to come up with some type of onboarding process when you're working with them. And the reason you want to come up with a formal process and write it out is so that you can replace yourself and so that you can bring on an affiliate manager at some point, and then this process is a process. And then when there's an issue, you judge the process, not the people executing the process. And I think this is something that's important if we're going to talk about working with a team or building a team, is that a lot of small companies don't put into place a process. And when you don't put into place a process, you end up blaming people. But if people don't have a direction or a process to follow, they have to figure it out on their own, and then mistakes are going to happen. And that's a really messy way to run a business, because emotions get involved, people take things personally, and it goes badly typically. And so NASA, on the other hand, is very process oriented, and the software developers at NASA have a really detailed process for how they do things. And that's because when they make mistakes, people can die. And also, if you make software mistakes, it can be a problem if your satellite is halfway through the solar system and you can't communicate with it anymore because there are bugs. You got major problems. And so what they do is they write these very intricate processes, and whenever they have a dispute, they dispute the process, not the people following it. And that keeps emotions from coming out and causing problems with your team. And so that's why I'm a big proponent of processes, and you should create one for your affiliates when you get started. And it's simply like a checklist, right? Like, new affiliate comes on board, we're going to review their application. We always send an email to the affiliates and ask them a few follow-up questions no matter what. Then once we get them onboarded onto the network, we have a conversation with them about what type of offers they're looking for. We ask them a bunch of follow-up questions then we approve them for those offers. Then we give them tracking numbers. Then we follow up with them 3 days later to find out if they've implemented or not. We watch their traffic. We implement capping on their traffic. And then after a specific period of time, we do quality assurance on that traffic, maybe 6 days after they start or 5 days after they start. And if the quality assurance comes back good, then we raise their cap a specific amount. And then after 3 months of quality traffic, we'll accelerate payment terms. Whatever this is, you need to come up with it on your own and then create an actual process to follow so that your team can follow it. And then once you hire more people, they know what to do. You don't really have to train them. They have this like checklist to follow. And small companies don't typically do checklists, but they're super, super powerful and simple, because if there's an issue, you go back to the checklist and you ask your affiliate manager, like, hey, did you follow the checklist? And they say no. Like, all right, well, time to retrain. So what we're going to want to do as well during this onboarding process with affiliates is definitely do a lot of quality assurance. And that can take a lot of time. And a lot of networks don't do a great job with this. But if you're going to work with affiliates, you should invest in the quality assurance. And how do you do that? You listen to the recording. So immediately when a new affiliate comes online and they start sending you a few calls, you want to be listening to those recordings. Because if there are problems, you can detect them immediately and resolve it, or get rid of the affiliate if you don't want to work with them anymore, long before their balance due becomes anything meaningful. Because if you wait 2 weeks to tell an affiliate they're not getting paid and they've racked up $1,000 in commissions with you, they're going to be really upset because you didn't listen to their calls and do your quality assurance quickly, so they lose a bunch of money. And then you're going to get posts and bad reviews and people complaining about you on the internet because you didn't have a process in place to handle things quickly. So new affiliate comes on, you want to listen to the calls daily, okay? And then you want to compare the average handle time to other campaigns and affiliates on your platform to see if the average handle time lines up. Because if it doesn't line up, something could be wrong there, okay? You're going to want to check for prank calls and mystery shoppers. You want to see what the callers sound like, if they're clearly interested or they're incentivized. You're going to want to do a full quality assurance grid on new affiliates calls to make sure they're good. And that doesn't mean you personally have to do it, though in the beginning you absolutely should, so you can understand the process and create your QA grid. But once you figure that process out, you should hire a virtual assistant or someone overseas, use Upwork and get them to listen to the calls and then to submit quality assurance grids to you and your team so that you guys can assess these things without investing hours and hours of time doing it yourself. Now, if you're going to use Ringba, we actually allow you to speed up the playback of recordings. So not only you, but your outsourced people will spend less time doing quality assurance, and that puts more money in your pocket. Now, you also want to review long calls to see if those calls are converting for buyers or to see if there's any anomalies with those. And if they send you 10 or 15 phone calls, you can QA them all and figure out if their back-end conversion rate for your buyers is good. And if it's good, you know you probably have a high-quality affiliate. If it's bad, you want to deal with that situation immediately. You don't want to wait. You don't want to come back to the affiliate 2 weeks later and then tell them they're not getting paid. That's like worst case scenario for an affiliate and your brand. It should never happen. And then somewhere in your process, you should schedule a 1-hour review / plan to move forward with the affiliate. So if I were running a network, I would have a process in place where an affiliate comes on, and then 3 days after they start driving calls, I'm going to have a QA grid back on those calls from some outsourced QA people, and I'm going to schedule a 1-hour review / plan with the affiliate. And not only am I going to review their quality assurance results, I'm going to ask them to see their landing pages and their marketing methods, and then I'm going to help coach them on how to increase volume and get better quality in order. I'm going to look at their copywriting. I'm going to look at their funnel. I'm going to check everything to see if I can help them and actually invest in the success of my affiliates. The networks I've seen do that rise like rocket ships. The ones that don't stay stagnant. And so sometimes you're going to invest in people and it's not going to pay off. And I think people get bitter about that time lost. But this is marketing. Everything has a conversion rate. Everything is trackable. And so if you spend an hour with each new affiliate, yeah, it's going to cost you a lot of time. But when you help that one dude take his business 100x bigger, he's loyal for life. And then you have a great affiliate. And so it's totally worth the effort. And I plead with you to invest in affiliates and help them help you. Because if you do that, you're going to create an environment that fosters growth for you and the people around you, and you're going to see results from it. Okay? And lastly, but most importantly, you need to transparently discuss any issues with affiliates, and you need to be on top of this so that they understand what the rules are and they know what they need to do. I highly recommend that you watch my lesson on quality assurance because we talk about this in detail, but essentially your insertion order and your contract with affiliates should have like a cover page or an addendum with it that lists everything that's not allowed, and then you have them sign it, and then during that 1-hour review, you review it with them, or you do it during the onboarding process over the phone so that there is no question what is and is not allowed on your platform or with your campaigns. And if you don't take the time to do that, and an affiliate does something you don't like, and they're not aware of it, they're going to think you cheated them when you don't pay. And that's why it's important to be super transparent about this. And I think everyone in the pay-per-call space could do a better job always about this. It should be a constant and never-ending improvement cycle. And communication should be at the forefront of that. So let's talk about dispute resolution, because a dispute's going to happen with affiliates no matter what you do. You should count on it. You should have a process in place, and you should know how you're going to handle these types of things in advance. So the first thing you should do when you have an issue is determine your exposure. And what I mean by that is you need to figure out the financial liability of that issue. Is what the affiliate did going to make it so you're not going to get paid from your partner? Did your partner notice? Are they going to pay you? Is this a major issue? Do you need to communicate it to your buyers? What do you need to do? Okay? So first and foremost, you determine your exposure, right? Are you going to take a loss? And a loss can mean financial, reputation, or partner loss, buyer loss, whatever. Okay? Next, you're going to need to assess if they broke the campaign rules. Because if they didn't break your campaign rules, because your rules didn't cover the issues, you also are at fault. And so what I see and what I've seen in the past is people will be real sloppy about their campaign rules and requirements, and then an affiliate does something that the buyers don't like. The network says, oh, the buyer's unhappy. I'm not paying you. And then the affiliate is like, wait a second. I followed all your campaign rules. I communicated with you. Your rules are right there, and I didn't break them. You're burning me. And the network's like, no, you sent me crap calls. The buyer's not happy. The affiliate's going to be like, that's not my problem. I didn't break the rules. You took 3 weeks to tell me that there was an issue. You need to pay me. And that scenario, which happens quite often in the affiliate space, I would side with the affiliate. Even if I owed them money personally, I'd side with the affiliate. Because if I was not on my campaign rules and I was not on my quality assurance process so that it happened quickly, that's not necessarily the affiliate's fault. He thought everything was good, and so he kept driving volume. His account manager probably was like, oh yeah, man, the volume's good. Buyer seems to like it. Keep sending volume. Let's grow it. So he grows it, spends more money, incurs hard cost, and then something bad happens and the affiliate's at a loss. Okay? And rarely do networks even want to participate in picking up the tab when they do something wrong. They'd rather just sever the relationship, in my experience, which isn't how you build a giant brand. Okay? That's not how you build a big business. And I understand when you're small, you can't eat shit that often. But if you're not doing a good job communicating the rules, you have to take some responsibility for it. And I think the key here is communication. Key is always communication. If you have a quality assurance process that's good, you're communicating with your buyers, and your buyer says the quality's good, and then 3 weeks later changes their mind, well, that's the buyer's fault. And I demand the money for that. But if you're in communication with all parties at all times and you're doing a good job on your QA on both sides, you won't run into these issues. And when you do have an issue, it's simple and you can handle it. And so if you catch bad things quickly because you have a good QA process, you can go back to the affiliates and be like, hey, the quality's not good on this. How do we work together to resolve it? And then eating the $100 in phone calls that were an issue isn't a big deal. You help them resolve it. You make it up in the long run. You got a happy affiliate. You got a happy buyer. Instead, if you're not on top of it, you just piss everyone off. So you want to try and work with the affiliate whenever possible, unless it's like straight fraud. If it's something new, or they did follow the rules, or there was no real malicious intent, you want to work with the affiliate. Because if they came up with a new way to drive calls to a campaign that the buyer had never seen before and your rules didn't cover, that's probably a pretty smart affiliate, and you should figure out a way to work with them and establish a relationship. You're going to have to do a little more oversight, perhaps, or get them to communicate more, but those are the people you should be looking for, okay? And so if they didn't attempt to do anything that was fraudulent or break the rules, they're just clever. And you should leverage that. The next thing you should ask yourself when you have an issue is, how do you improve compliance procedures? How do you improve quality assurance procedures? Because anytime you have a major issue, you should personally be taking some sort of responsibility for it and changing your procedures. Because if you had an issue and it was bad and it took weeks to resolve, that's a procedural problem and you need to change it. And so this is one of the ways that you will have compounding issues with your business. If you do not improve your compliance procedures over time to adapt to what you learn, you'll run into more issues. Or worst case, you'll have the same issues repeat themselves again. Now, if you have an affiliate get in trouble for something, you didn't catch it, and then 2 months later, the same thing happens with a different affiliate, it's your fault at that point. And you need to improve your procedures. I see it time and time again. It's very important that everything in your business is flexible and you're willing to improve upon it regardless of what happens. And so my next question you should be asking after any event that's negative with an affiliate is, how do you prevent future incidents of this nature? And you should even have an incident report for every incident with an affiliate that your affiliate managers or you even fill out. And the question at the bottom of that should always be, how do you prevent future incidents of this nature from occurring? And then you get your feedback from your team and you make sure it doesn't happen again. Because if you have lots of incidents that result in pissed off buyers or bad payments or quality assurance issues or terminated affiliates, you're going to build a reputation that's negative, and it's not going to help your business out. Okay? Your reputation is everything in affiliate marketing, pay-per-call marketing, and you need to maintain it. So I will assert that non-payment to an affiliate should always be your absolute last resort, even if it's easy to just not pay them. And I'm going to repeat that. In my professional experience and opinion, non-payment should always be your absolute last resort. If some calls were good and some were bad, pay for the good ones, don't pay for the bad ones, and offer evidence of the issue to the affiliate so that they know exactly why you're not paying them, and be transparent about it. Because if you just not pay people and you don't communicate, you're going to suffer reputation damage and you're going to get public posting. And if that's the only reason why you don't screw people over, because you don't want reputation damage or public posting, I'll take it. But realistically, non-payment should always be your absolute last resort, because I'm assuming that we're all not pieces of shit here and we want to conduct actual business in a professional way. And so affiliates are extremely fickle about payments, and that's why you have to be on top of your game. And if you're not on top of your game and you don't communicate well and you don't have a good QA process, you will take reputation damage. People will hear about it even if the postings aren't public, and that can cost you millions of dollars.